authorities picked up a failed entrepreneur and former fry cook as a suspect in an 18-year-old murder.
Bob Clark, days before, had been preparing for a tabletop strategy game by poring over old World War II maps. In the other room, a program had been airing called America's Most Wanted. They had shown a bust created by the FBI that looked remarkably similar to Bob Clark. A neighbor who had seen this program called in a tip. Some of his backstory didn't quite make sense, and his personality was just a little sketchy. When authorities questioned him, he maintained his name was Bob Clark and he was trying to become an accountant. Could this man they had in their custody now be the same man that had evaded them for nearly 2 decades? This man was John List. The America's Most Wanted episode had been talking about a crime from 1973. Over the course of a half a day, John List had killed his wife, mother, and 3 children, and left their bodies wrapped in sleeping bags in the main hall, locked the home with the lights on to stand as a tomb until anyone discovered the gruesome scene nearly a month later. By that time, John had vanished. FBI had very few leads to go on. He was put up on a list with D.B. Cooper as unlikely to ever catch. How could a prudish, ultra-conservative, ultra-religious accountant have avoided capture for nearly 2 decades? Well, it's because John List was remarkably, exceptionally dull.
Oh boy, a nickel. I will invest that into 1/100th of a savings bond with 0.028%
John
interest.
List was originally uptight, conservative religious grouch whose only passion in life was accounting. He believed in authority and unbending in his beliefs. An asocial, covert narcissist trying to succeed in a 1960s corporate world. In 1925, John List was born in Bay City, Michigan, the son to German-born parents. John's father didn't provide warmth, referring to John as simply the boy. The home didn't even offer a dedicated bedroom. Instead, his father renovated a floor of the house they lived in to convert into an apartment for extra income, leaving John to sleep in the study on a cot. He believed that success and failure was both an indicator of your devotion and a result of it. If your faith was strong, God would bless you with success. If you failed, it's because you didn't work hard enough for God's blessings. Lacking a caring father figure, John was hovered over by an overprotective, overbearing mother, to the point that he'd begin speaking with her inflections and affectations.
Mother, we need more starch for my pants.
John was a slightly above average student, but as he'd be remembered all of his life, dull, unassuming, and just there. In 1943, John List graduated high school and joined the military. He spent his free time either reading the Bible or collecting stamps.
Satisfactory, I have nearly completed my collection on 12-cent stamps.
Okay, side tangent. I'm not going to knock somebody's hobby, but let's just say I'd rather spend an afternoon shoving peeled lemons up my ass than collect stamps. If on any occasion you ask me to go to the stamp store with you to look at the new stamps, I will tell you to get as far away from me as possible because your charisma roll failed spectacularly, and then I'd give you a firm and direct no. In 1945, John's father passed away while John was stationed in Virginia. He left for just long enough to attend the funeral and return to base, viewing it as just an unfortunate errand.
Oh father, you died.
In 1948, when he was discharged from the military, directionless, John and his mother decided that he should pursue a degree in business management. He avoided any form of sin by spending his time at either church functions or a bowling alley set up by a church in the basement. It's here where he met Helen. Helen was a syphilitic, wall-eyed war widow who pined desperately for her dead husband and was a creature of misfortune after misfortune. Born into an abusive family, she suffered through a series of abusive relationships until she met a soldier named Marvin, whom she married. While giving birth to their daughter, she had been splashed in the eye with ether. Her war hero husband had infected her with syphilis, which she was unable to receive treatment for. After John's service had concluded, he and Helen married after she had faked a pregnancy. John took a job as an accountant to support them, which he was really freaking good at, working his way into a comfortable salary. Helen had a taste for the expensive and the elegant trappings of the 1950s keeping up with the Jones lifestyle, which kept the List family on a razor's edge of financial ruin at all times. John and Helen would go on to have 3 children and move into a literal mansion that John had to triple mortgage to pay for, and still needed a substantial loan from his mother, who agreed to do so on condition of living in the mansion. John and Helen, despite living in this beautiful mansion, were not people. They weren't exactly friendly with their neighbors, nor were they much cared for in John's professional social circles. Helen, already being a real catch, was a consummate drunk, with a tendency to discuss John's inadequacies both in and out of the bedroom during these social settings. After the birth of their daughter, Helen would call John demanding he come home and change the baby because it shouldn't be her responsibility and he should hire a nanny. Because of his lack of social standing within his professional circles, his position was ultimately terminated during a company downsizing, forcing John to take a position at another company with roughly half the salary. Because of the financially precarious situation, the mansion started to fall apart. John's children, growing up in the 1960s, were not up to his rigid standards, and Helen, John's syphilitic, lazy-eyed, toxic, verbally abusive wife, began suffering late-onset symptoms of her condition, which I'm sure was just awesome. As Helen's condition and the List family financials further deteriorated, Helen's sister suggested getting Helen on services, applying for government programs to assist. To John, this was charity. It was not only an admission of failure, but completely alien, and most importantly, sinful. On the morning of November 9th, 1973, the List mansion echoed. Over the course of the next couple weeks, the music would continue as the lights in the rooms would go out one by one. It wasn't until the List's daughter's acting coach went by the property to settle a nagging feeling he had from something his student had said that the revelation came to light. When he peeked inside, he saw 4 bodies laying in the main hall. It didn't take long for investigators to develop a motive for why John had done what he did. The financial situation he was in, the house was triple mortgaged. Helen's condition was so severe that she was near the end of her life or being hospitalized permanently. And John couldn't stand the idea of his children drifting further away from his rigid standards. And John's narrative he crafted for himself, providing whatever his wife wanted was his duty in life as a man of God. He had lost the job where he'd already taken a pay cut, draining their and his mother's bank accounts. Every day, he would dress, primp, and take the train to the next station, reading for 8 hours, rather than admit that he'd lost his job to his family. The final nail in the coffin was when the mansion had received a foreclosure notice. He was afraid of his family living in poverty, and John decided that it was better to spare them the sin of destitution.
Authorities picked up a failed entrepreneur and former fry cook.
When asked why he hadn't committed suicide, he explained that it was an unforgivable sin, and by living, he'd have a chance to repent and rejoin his family in heaven. I don't think they're going to want to see you, man. John was moved back to Jersey to face trial and quickly was found guilty on all 5 counts of murder. His legal defense tried very little other than to reduce the sentences, but he was given mandatory life for each conviction. For over 6,400 days, John woke up, carried on with his life. A rigid, selfish, theocratic despot of his own design. His children deprived of those days to satiate his own narcissistic judgment. If you like this video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Ring the bell for notifications. Share this video around. Help me out with the algorithm. And until next time, a toodaloo.